Hello, everybody. You are listening to Startup Secrets for Entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Shelby Oleschlager. Our mission here is to help entrepreneurs make a difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. Join me today where we dig deep with our guests to give you the best concepts and strategies to fast track your business. Today, our special guest is Miriam Ortiz, I think. I'm sorry. Miriam, thank you so much for joining us today. To get started, please give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a certified professional organizer and money breakthrough business coach. So I started out doing professional organizing because I love, lining things up and helping people declutter and simplify their life. But I realized most of my clients were actually entrepreneurs or small business owners themselves. Mm-hmm. And there was this big connection between their money mindset and the way the clutter would be piling up around their house, or their workspace. So I started learning more about how our brains work and make decisions, and how to reframe people's thoughts about money and get them out of their own way so they could both have a more successful business and live a more simple life.
Wow, that's interesting. The connection between, you say you're a professional organizer, and then it instantly goes into the money mindset and how that's connected. So to backtrack a little bit for people listening that don't quite understand, how would you describe a professional organizer?
Right. So I'm one of those people that actually goes into your home or office and helps you figure out why clutter is piling up where it is. We declutter and we set up systems so that you can really streamline your life. You no longer have to think about where something lives. You no longer have to think about, what do I do with this thing? Or when do I replace this thing? Or, what do I do with it once it's in my house? So you know where things are when you need them, and it's really easy. And there's less dusting when you know how to do that too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can see in your head, almost like the mental clutter, I think, relates to the physical clutter. So you're really doing a lot more. Like you said, it's all about how the brain works. So what have some of the realizations been helping these people that struggle with their organization?
Yeah, just how much money people waste on things they don't need because they don't have a good idea of who they want to be and how they want to be. It's what they want. People are really good at figuring out what they don't want. They're not as good at figuring out what they want. But they're always focused on what they don't want. So that's where all their attention and energy goes. So you buy things that fill up that hole of, I don't know. And so you have all these things that you didn't really intend to bring into your life, but now they're here because you were trying them out to see if it was the right fit, instead of doing it the other way around, figuring out what you want and then buying the things that support that. So that was probably the biggest one. Just, you're doing it to yourself. When you're this stressed and overwhelmed because of the clutter and the lack of time, it's because of the decisions you made over the last years and months and weeks. So figuring out your decisions ahead of time help you not have that pile up again.
So what type of advice could you give people to maybe start taking a couple steps towards uncovering these things, like the mental aspect of it all, to really get more organized?
Yeah, I would actually, one of my favorite things to do with my clients is we start with listing a list of activities they actually participate in, and then highlighting the ones they actually love participating in, and then looking around the house at all the stuff that doesn't serve those activities and getting that stuff out of the way first. So, a lot of organizers and the shows on TV and the books talk about you just start and you go in and you do one area at a time. And I'm like, yes, but when people aren't good at making decisions, they're going to get overwhelmed and frustrated before they get that deep into one area. I really like telling people it's a layering process. So do the easy stuff first. If you really want to participate in triathlons, but you're struggling with eating too much junk food, take the junk food out of the house. Right? Do it at that very practical level. If you no longer participate in archery, maybe let go of all the bows and arrows. Start with something easy that ties into your actual activities, and helps you get ready on a day-to-day basis. So that's one layer. And then you can always have a bunch of stuff that you're not sure about and do it again. And then still have more stuff that you're not sure about and you do it again. And each time you get better at the decision making and you get a better result of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And back to the mindset, do you find that people struggle with the idea of letting go? Because I feel like
it depends on the person. Some people don't have a problem at all, and their clutter is because of lots of things happening all at once, like transition phases, or putting it off till later because they're too busy and they want to think about it more. And once they put the time aside to do that, they're fine. We all have possession bias though. And so that means once you own something, you have a harder time letting it go than bringing it into your life in the first place. So you have to work at both ends of the spectrum at the same time. Both, how are you going to bring better things into your life? Mm-hmm. And how are you going to let go of the things that you did erroneously in the first place?
Right.
Corrects. It's a self-correcting thing, and you can't solve a clutter problem by continuing to bring in the wrong things.
Mm-hmm. And that goes fully back to the beginning of knowing like what
don't you want?
Need? Yeah.
Right.
What you want.
Yeah.
And it's
so
yeah. And it's such a simple question, but I think a lot of us struggle with that answer.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think a lot of people these days are talking about purpose, and it's the same thing. There is no such thing as your purpose. You were not put on this earth to do one thing. You were put on this earth to be a better version of yourself, or be the best you can be. And whatever that looks like for you is going to change at various points in your life. There may be a through thread that you could consider a purpose, but it's not your purpose. It's what do you want? Our desires actually reveal who we can become. And if you push down that, well, that's crazy, that's silly, no one will take me seriously if I do that. If you have those kinds of thoughts, it gets in the way. If you have a lot of shoulds and expectations of how to be, I work with a lot of women, so there's a lot of be the perfect Instagram mom. Well, that's fake. That's a story. I don't care who it is. No one is completely authentic 100% of the time in terms of their online presence. You are always authentically you in every moment, but we're afraid to show what that really looks like. And so we have these unrealistic expectations through the media that are impossible. And so when people that are striving for that meet someone that's actually organized or actually successful, they're always surprised, like, oh, and you don't do all these other things? And it's like, yeah, no, I had to say no to some things to be able to do what I really wanted to do. And if you are really participating in things you want to do, you have more fun, right? And then you have more energy to show up for the things you need to do for your clients or for your family.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense. And it is interesting, and having that awareness, I think, of looking at people and be like, this isn't real, or the environment that they're showing in that sense isn't always, like you said, completely authentic. So I'm curious, when you're helping these people, you talked just about trying to craft that environment that suits them, where they can be more successful or more productive. What are some of the things that you think make that ideal environment for better performance?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're working on, but for most people, this is kind of a generalization, you're looking for somewhere that sparks your creativity, allows you to focus, and so a clean surface to work where you can bring the things you're working on to you and then return them to where they go, allows your mind to settle long enough to do that deeper work you might need to do. I work with a lot of artistic people and crafty people, and they have so much crafting stuff and inspiration that they never get around to actually doing the artistic work because they have to move so many things on their table or their desk just to get to the things they need to make the thing they wanted to make, that they don't have enough time to make the thing they wanted to make. And so it's that fine line between inspiration and clutter, and really understanding that a clear workspace is going to work for 98% of the people. And there's so many people that will throw out one study or one anecdote about someone that's super creative and really messy, but there's usually a system there that the person that's not getting to the stuff they want to do doesn't have. So it's the system. What is your personal workflow like? And what do you need to support that workflow? It's not an extra cool set of cat-shaped Post-it notes. It's Do you need something to write on? Do you need something to write with? It doesn't matter what the shape of the paper is. A better planner, a better notepad is not going to change your life. Using it in a way that works for processing your ideas and thoughts is what's going to change the needle. I've just mixed like 27 metaphors right there. I don't know what I was doing.
I love it though. I totally follow. But you said you said a word that started with S and you said system. I wrote down structure because that's kind of what made me think of having that structure that you're going to go into a space that's going to really allow you to thrive and figure it out. And like having everything where you need and also putting it away.
Yeah. And I think everything, I've not found a place where this doesn't hold true, needs a flexible structure. So this is not about rigidity and stifling creativity or trying to fit you into a mold. This is about how can you create enough structure in your day to get the things you want to do done and not feel overwhelmed while you're doing it. And most people don't understand that there can be a flexible structure. You know, in earthquake zones, the buildings sway in the wind because if the ground shakes, you don't want the building to collapse. That's what we're looking for. Something that's flexible enough to adapt once a new opportunity comes up or an emergency comes up, but allows you to process important work constantly and consistently so that you get the result you're looking for, not that you're always redoing and restarting the same thing. There's a lot of rearranging going on in the world that just doesn't need to happen. It doesn't have to be in the perfect container or on the perfect shelf or in the perfect planner. It just needs to be used.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
If only we thought it was that simple, right? And it kind of just goes back to me. It makes me think of like imperfect action, kind of like.
Yes, it's all imperfect action. And there is a weird thing about it has to be perfect or it has to be complicated to be the right solution. But really, it is seriously simple. What do you need to make dinner? The ingredients that go into the recipe, the pots to cook it in, the plates to serve it on. And even that's debatable. You could eat out of the pot if you needed to. You know, like I'm a big fan of reverse engineering. To do the thing you need to do, what must be in place? You don't need 27 different calendars or notebooks or apps to get the thing done. When people are like, yeah, but what app do you use? I'm like, I don't use an app. And they're like, what? How do you manage all this stuff? It's like, well, okay, I have one app for managing. It's like an index or contents for all the stuff that's stored in my file system in my Dropbox. I don't have extra apps. And every time I do get an extra app or try one out for a client, I end up abandoning it because it's just extra bells and whistles I don't need. So you got to really know what you need the things to do. And then you figure out which one matches for you. Because using the app that works for someone else isn't necessarily going to be the best fit for you. I'm sure you found that in running online businesses as well.
Yeah. And it is so true that what works for one thing doesn't necessarily work for you. So that's where it does come of it. You have to figure it out what's going to best suit you, and no one really can give you that magic answer. Right. So it takes that time. And go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, people ask all the time, well, what CRM do you use? I go, mine isn't going to be enough for some of my clients, and it's going to be too much for other clients. And it took me years of trial and error to find the right one. And then they went out of business and I had to do it again. And so you have to understand the process you're looking for, the system you're looking for, not the product. And that way you can piece something together if you have to, or find something as closely matching as possible.
Yeah. And you talk about helping now like business coaches with some of their work. And I know that's a little different from helping someone learn how to cook food or learning to be more creative. So what are some of what are some of your clients, and what are the main things that you're able to really work them through?
Yeah. So it's all about the systems. So when I do the business coaching, it's about how to systematize and be consistent with their marketing. I can help with some branding and some strategy, but it's mostly how do you then implement that strategy regularly so you get a result. There's stuff about money mindset that help you figure out your pricing and your packaging and positioning. And there's stuff about how to just package your services. So I work with lots of service coaches, consultants, but I also work with a lot of artists and professional women. And so where can they create more productivity by how they structure their day or their work? So it's how to think about your work in terms of a series of steps that can be repeated at various times. So it brings the mindset, the productivity, and the organization all together so they can get their work done in fewest amount of hours possible.
Yeah, ideally that's the goal, right?
Right? You want to have more fun.
And so when you're helping people, like I just thought of, someone that wants to make a course, so they want to start their online business, and that can be so overwhelming of all the pieces that you eventually have to put together. So what are some of the first steps that you have with these people? Like, let's say it's a new client. What are some of the first things that you go through to help them build that good foundation?
Yeah. So I do two things with all of my clients that seem unusual, but speed up and make the whole process more effective. I do a sacred money archetypes reading, which is one of the modalities I use that help. It's kind of a personality test about how you think about money. But how you do money is how you do everything. And so if you have a limiting belief about having to work hard for money, it's probably connected to your archetype. And you're going to feel like you have to grind and hustle all day long. And you're going to be exhausted and burn out running your own business. So how do we take whatever that aspect of the limiting belief is with your archetype, which is just the shorthand for a set of characteristics about how you interact with money and things and people, and use that to support you instead of hinder you. So if you have that belief, maybe you need a little bigger team so that more work gets done, but you don't have to burn out. Maybe, we look at what pieces of work to focus on for you and kill your darlings that aren't bringing in the ROI, whatever that might be. But it also helps me not push someone that's just never going to let go of that thing because it's integral to how they think and process information. So it works on both ends there. So we do that because it helps with communication and it gives me language and wording to help people think through their decision making. And then it's automatically in alignment with them. I also use a quick quiz that gives me insight into how people process information. There's kind of three ways people process information in their brains. Some people, it's like the big picture versus the detail people and the people that are able to switch back and forth fairly easily. Everyone can learn all the different ways, but you're going to naturally have one that's your go-to and kind of default mode network that you process the information with. And so between those two things, I know which of my system options is going to be the best fit for you. So then it's really fast.
Yeah, it's perfect. You got to get that insight, right? Because we're all so different with that and understanding.
Yeah. And it gives a sense of relief and permission to people that may be a little bit neurodivergent. And it works really well, like ADHD people. If I help them figure out that you just process differently, it's not wrong. We're always looking for that right answer. And there's no one right answer. There's what's going to work for you. And it's going to change over time as things change for you and your life and your work as well. Mm-hmm. So this just helps them get to thinking about how do I problem solve it next time this issue comes up? How do I work with it, around it, through it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. Because having that understanding is going to make it so much easier, I think. And like you said, give them the permission to say, hey, this is maybe like going way back to what we initially said of this might work for you, but not for this person, and just allowing that to be okay.
Yeah. And I think too, making that transition from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, there's always that mindset shift of, no, you're no longer basing it on, what you charge on your time. It's not about how many hours you worked, how much money you made. It's how much effort you put into the right things that provide value to the people. Like it's much more about cost of goods sold than it is about hours, and getting that mindset transition helps too, and helps people really think differently about what they're spending time on.
Right. I do want to talk a little bit about that money mindset, as you say that you're the simplicity expert and money breakthrough business coach, which is awesome. So when you're getting someone that, let's say, is struggling with that, you did the work or you did the course to see where they're lacking. Is there anything that is common among most people that are really stopping them from reaching that next step that they want to reach?
Yeah, it's mixing up worth and value. So your self-worth has nothing to do with how much you can charge people. It's all about the value you're bringing to your clients or your customers. And are you communicating that in a way that resonates with them? So it's how can you make your marketing and your messaging match what you're trying to offer and how you're delivering it, so your marketing becomes easier because you just have a nice through line. You don't have to backtrack and step. And I feel like the number one issue that online marketers have is they're not talking about what they bring to the table and the value that clients can get from doing the thing. It's just, I have this thing, buy it. I made this for you, buy it. Well, what does it help me do? Well, it's cool. It's this thing. I made it, or I'm offering it. I'll come and help you. Help me what? Well, I'm a life coach. What does that mean? What kind of life coach? What aspect of my life are you going to help me with? You know, there's just too much generic and technical gobbledygook online that doesn't tell me what I'm going to get if I hire you. So really be clear about that. And then the money part doesn't matter as much. You can charge whatever you want. I mean, I know people that I have spent thousands of dollars on programs that were crappy. Let's just put it that way. I've also spent $25 on excellent programs. So none of it has to do with the value that person was bringing to me. It was, what did I need in that moment? And was that a good fit? And did they communicate it clearly? And in the crappy ones, it was no. They overpromised and underdelivered. And in the other ones, I thought it was going to be, oh, I'll just check it out. And it was like super insightful, and they could have charged me like 17 times more. So you've got to be really aware of where you are in that positioning of what you're offering, and making sure that the message meets the delivery.
And I guess in that sense, it would feel a lot more like it'd feel a lot more better, I guess, to actually charge a certain amount, even if it's an uncomfortable amount, like you think it's way too much. But if you're really clear on these things, then it makes you feel a little bit more like empowered to say, I am actually worth this. Yes.
And that is the one point where worth and value intersect. When we mix them up, you think because you wouldn't pay that much for something because it's natural and normal for you, but someone that struggles with it, it's worth way more, and they will definitely pay that. But you can't base your pricing on what you would pay for it. You have to base it on the value you're bringing to the people that are going to buy it. That one switch helps. And you're right, it's uncomfortable, and you have to practice, and you have to be willing to be told no hundreds of times to get to the yeses as you work on your delivery and your messaging and making sure it's clear. And as you work through getting comfortable yourself. And you have to say it over and over and over until it becomes like pass the salt. Yeah, you can work with me for 3 months and it's this amount of money. And you have to be able to say it that easily. You know, you can't, sure, we can work together for a year. It'll be $20,000. Really? Oh my God, that's a lot. Well, how much is a client worth to you? Okay, yeah. You just get clear on bringing clarity to the person making the decision about hiring you. It's not about you. It's not about them. You stay out of their wallet. They stay out of yours. You just, this is what I offer. This is what it is. So the wishy-washy, I think, is probably the biggest mindset situation that goes on. You say one thing, but you're actually acting and behaving a different way. So it doesn't match up.
Yeah.
And then that's why people aren't hiring you.
And I think this all goes full circle with the idea of our own personal space and how organized it is, where we can't be wishy-washy of like just stuff scattered. Like we have to be sure and everything, like you said, it goes in a spot and everything, and you're clear and it's like confident. And you're like, you're in control kind of. And yeah, I like that. I also love the metaphor. You're on point with those today of pass the salt. It's so true. Like you have to be that comfortable with saying it, just like it's second nature. Like this is what it is.
If you have to stand in front of a mirror and say it 500 times a day for the next 3 weeks, it's worth it. Because it becomes so worth it. The other point is that I think is really important is a lot of people start their business and they jump ahead. They forget, what do you want out of your business? You are now in charge of your business. So what are you designing? What is it that you are creating for your clients? There's no right answer. It's what are you creating? What do you want out of your business? And what do you want it to look like? I made the mistake of I had that very clear. And then I started listening to experts that took me off that path for years. And I started actually like a year before COVID, I started going, no, I can't do this anymore. This isn't me. This isn't working. I'm fighting it. I feel like it's work. I don't want it to feel like work. I want it to feel like flow. This is how I wanted it to go. As soon as I put that back in place, I've been super busy. So I think there's something, once you get all those pieces in place and really clear, and taking the time up front to set up what that is. Not jumping right ahead to sales. You have to figure out what you're bringing to the table and how you're going to deliver it.
Yeah. And I think that would help a lot of issues. Like just thinking of myself, like if you procrastinate a lot, I think the reason is because you don't have those clear steps in place. So you're like, I don't know where to start. So I just might not start right now or something.
Or I'll just go on Facebook for a while. Or I'll just go on YouTube.
It's marketing. It's marketing, right?
But why are you on there? Like that's the other thing. Well, why are you on social media? People are like, well, what platforms are you on? You should get on these other platforms. These other platforms are cool. And I'm like, my clients aren't on TikTok. My clients are 45 to 65 years old. They are not on TikTok. I hate to tell you, girls. It's just not there. So I'm not going to waste my time hanging out there. If in the future it becomes really easy to like do an occasional post that's going through some sort of autoresponder that automatically goes there from another place, maybe, but only if the other place is also working for me.
Or if you have the why, like if it makes sense, right?
Why are you doing it? Are you trying to get comfortable without people actually seeing you? Are you
what are you hiding from? We got to dig deep here.
Exactly. And I think so many of the answers are just those little questions that we don't really ask ourselves, or when we do and we don't like the answer, we assume it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be that easy. It can't be that I can't possibly have what I actually want. The limiting beliefs again. I can't actually charge that much. All of that is the same response, right? It's all keeping yourself small instead of being expansive and opening up to possibility.
So powerful. I always like to finish off these things. One, if people resonate with you, because I'm probably going to do this as well, where can people find you?
Yep. morethanorganized.net is my website. I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/morethanorganized, and YouTube, More Than Organized, all run together.
More Than Organized.
More Than Organized. I'm on LinkedIn. Like I'm on all the things except TikTok. I just haven't gotten there yet. I'm not on Clubhouse right now either. So, but there's, the usual suspects. I'm there. There's lots of free resources on the website though. And that's the best way to make all the different connections.
Perfect. And I always like to finish off these episodes with one final piece of advice, something that you'd like to leave the listeners with thinking about after the interview. What would it be?
What do you want? Who do you want to be? And how do you want to be? It's the questions, it's the trifecta of figuring out every project, every opportunity. You don't just say yes because it's an opportunity. You have to have it match the answers to those questions. So you might as well start asking them of yourself all the time.
I love it. The clarity, right? Just
Yeah.
that.
And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It's what your answer was to those questions.
Yeah, that's perfect. Super powerful stuff. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. That was such a good conversation. And I definitely
really
took a lot
enjoyed
from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks.